Wisconsin versus Kevin Lychwick, 24 CF 1881. Appearances, please.
The state appears by Chelsea Thompson and Ann Tombasco. Also at council table is Detective Ben Stern.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Lychwick. Mr. Lychwick appears in person in custody. He appears as he was this morning. He still is dressed in jail orange with the green coat covering him. He is seated. Is he still in a wheelchair? My deputy confirms he is in a wheelchair. I may have neglected to make a record of this morning, but standby counsel Pablo Galaviz was also present this morning. He was in the courtroom in the front row of the gallery all morning, and he is once again present in the courtroom this afternoon. It is 1:02. Madam Clerk, do we have our jurors? Okay, it sounds like our jury may still be assembling. I told them to come back at 1, so we'll give them a few more minutes. While we're waiting, Attorney Thompson, anything to place on the record?
No, thank you.
Mr. Lychwick?
Again, I protest these proceedings. I'm unprepared for them, both medically and with counsel.
Understood, Mr. Lychwick, and as I said before, your objections are noted for the record. All right, they can come in.
All right. So you said 2011? Yeah. I would have been on the late 60s, and I think that was yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Make sure everyone's situated, and we are ready to resume testimony. Attorney Thompson, the state may call its next witness.
The state calls Dr. Truesdell, and she's just in the hallway coming in. No, Christy.
Okay. All right, Dr. Truesdell,
Yes.
You can come all the way up to the witness stand, and when you get up to the chair, please remain standing and raise your right hand to be sworn in by our clerk.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Thank you. You may have a seat. The black bar with the red dot in front of you is our microphone. Just get yourself situated nice and close to that. And when you are ready to begin, start by stating your name, spelling your first and last for the record.
My name is Jana Marie Truesdell. First name Jana, middle name Marie, last name T like Tom, Ruesdell.
And Dr. Truesdell, how are you employed?
I am a consultant anthropologist. I am also the director of the FEPAC accredited forensic investigation program at UW-Platteville.
And are you also a consultant for the Waukesha County Medical Examiner's Office in your capacity as a forensic anthropologist?
I am.
And do you know approximately how many times over your career that you have consulted with the ME's office here in Waukesha County?
5 or 6 times.
Okay. And how long have you been a forensic anthropologist?
Well, I began my training in 2009, and I graduated with my doctorate in 2016, 17, that kind of area.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please turn on the screen just for the witness? Dr. Truesdell, do you see a document on your screen?
I do.
Do you see the exhibit sticker of number 115?
I do.
Is this a 5-page document?
It says it is.
Okay. I will then scroll down, and if you could follow along with me, and I'll have some questions for you at the end. Okay, do you recognize Exhibit 115?
I do.
Is this your curriculum vitae?
It is.
And do you add to this as you continue on in your training and your experience in your career?
I do.
Is it accurate up until this point today?
Yes.
I would move Exhibit 115 into evidence, please.
Any objection to the admission of 115, Mr. Lychwick?
I object strenuously.
What is your legal basis?
These proceedings are a travesty of justice to
All
begin
right,
with.
your objections to the proceedings are irrelevant to this exhibit. This exhibit will be received into evidence.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Truesdell, you were telling us about how long you've been a forensic anthropologist. Can you go through for the jury your education?
From the very beginning?
Yes, please.
Sure. So I had a previous career as a performer and then went back into anthropology. So I went back to the bachelor's level at 2008 to get a certificate of major in anthropology from the University of Milwaukee. I then did my first master's degree at the University of Central Lancashire, or UCL. That's in the north of England. And I started there 2009 and then graduated 2010. Then I went and did a second master's, also in England, this time in London, at UCL, or University College London, and that was 2010 to 2011. I then did my doctoral degree at the University of Oxford, also in England, and I submitted my thesis in just at the end of 2016, right at the beginning of 2017, but then actually graduated in 2018.
In continuing through your CV, you are currently an associate professor of forensic investigation. Is that correct?
It is.
And which school is that through?
University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Okay. And can you tell me about the classes you teach at UW-Platteville?
In the fall, I teach medical legal death investigation. I am a board-certified medical legal death investigator, so I teach that class. I also teach what's called Forensic Firsts, which is the history of forensics and ethics, things like that, what put each discipline, like fingerprinting or DNA or anthropology, on the map, as it were, with the cases that sort of put them on the map. So that's that one. In the spring, we do forensic anthropology. And then we also do decomposition and the postmortem interval, which is showing students the trajectory of normal decomposition and the things that could sort of change it or inform on it. And then we place pigs, which are stand-ins for humans. They're the closest to us. So we place pigs out for several months, and we watch that trajectory as we've learned it in the classroom in different environments to show things that could alter things. So, and then I also teach senior seminar, which is the students' capstone projects. They can choose anything they like as long as it's forensic. So we do that for the entirety of the semester. They do, there's 30 projects in a semester, so there's quite a variation. And then any independent study anybody would want to do, I tend to do more anthropologically based ones, but I will do anything that anyone wants to do and is curious about.
Now, prior to being at UW-Platteville, were you also at University of Wisconsin Parkside?
I was.
And what was your role at that school?
I taught two 1 week long courses, so one in the winter and one in the summer. The one in the winter is again about death investigation and how to properly perform investigations and what you should look for, how to collect the most detail from the perspective of the body. What would they want at an autopsy? Should this be an autopsy or not? Those kinds of things, and those are centered around the pioneer of death investigation as we know it now, whose name was Francis Glessner-Lee. So then in the summer, it is an anthropological recovery class, meaning we put a plastic skeleton in the ground, and then we go through the process of how in an actual case we might recover those remains. So starting out looking at aerial photographs, topography, that kind of, what does the lay of the land look like? We then have cadaver dogs, drones. They winnow down to where we think that the plastic skeleton is, and then we find it, we map it, and then we excavate it and bring it out of the ground. We then take it into the lab and look at the bones themselves to see what they can tell us from an anthropological point of view.
Doctor, you referenced a name in there. Do you have a spelling for that name?
Francis, Frances, Glessner, Glessner, Lee, Lee.
Thank you.
No problem.
Now, you referenced being a consulting forensic anthropologist for the Waukesha County Medical Examiner's Office. Do you also consult with any other counties in the state of Wisconsin?
I do.
And which ones are those?
Walworth, Racine, and Kenosha currently. And anyone who wants to get in touch, but I work most often with them.
Okay. Now, as a forensic anthropologist, do you have any professional affiliations?
I do.
And can you describe some of those for the jury, please?
I am an associate member of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. I am also a board-certified member of the Medical Legal Death Investigators, the board, so ABMDI. I am a member of the Wisconsin Coroner and Medical Examiners Association here in Wisconsin, the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners. I am also a member of the Society of Medical Legal Death Investigators. I am an active team member on a response team that, say, a plane goes down or something like that. We would respond to that. Two of those, so there's Kenyon, which could be just property, and the last time that I was called for that is when COVID was first hitting New York. So, but then also I'm also a consultant with what's called DMORT, which is the Disaster Mortuary Operations Response Team, and I am an anthropological or a forensic anthropologist for them.
Are you currently in the certification process for the American Board of Forensic Anthropologists?
I am.
How long does that certification process take?
It can take years. They have they've just changed the application process, so now it's a minimum of 2 years, but it generally would take a little bit longer than that.
Okay. And why, as a forensic anthropologist, why is it important to be board certified in all of these areas, and in particular the one you're going through now?
Board certification or certifications in general are important for anthropologists because it introduces standards. So we want to make sure that we're all at least exposed to best practice. So we all agree the way we want to do this is the best way to do it. So we called that sort of standards, just generally standards. So we're all on the same page doing the same things. And that way we can review each other and say, I agree or I don't agree. So that's important for any kind of labs that are running any kind of tests, but it's important for us as well. Even though we are more subjective in a lot of our assessments, we have that sort of safety net of that everyone has the same information and we can all check each other. It's also important to, just like going to conferences and being a member of the things that I just had mentioned, it's important because it keeps you current in the field. You didn't just, learn something 20 years ago and haven't updated your knowledge. You're constantly renewing and learning new cases and meeting with each other and getting advice. And so you're making sure that you're still current in the field. So that's another reason that you would do that.
What is the focus of forensic anthropology?
Forensic anthropology could be defined as just having specialist knowledge of the skeleton, in our case the human skeleton, although we do need to know how it looks different from different non-human skeletons. But for the human skeleton, having specialist knowledge in that, and then applying that to the law, to legal contexts. That's the gist, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you are consulting with these various offices in the state of Wisconsin, are you sometimes called in to assist with identifying skeletonized remains?
Yes.
And what about a trauma analysis of the bones that are recovered?
Forensic anthropologists have a lot of things that they do. Helping with identification is one of the main ones. Who was this person? What did they look like? How old were they? Is it consistent with someone we maybe think it is, or do we not know at all and we need to generate something that we can go look for someone? But also, so that's a big one. But then also probably the second one would be a trauma analysis, as you've said. So a trauma analysis is maybe they already know who they think it is, but they want to know what happened to them or didn't happen to them. So that would be where that would fall. We also, if they were looking for a person, if they didn't know where they were, they just knew they were out there somewhere, we would be asked to help search for that person, and then we would call it recover them and bring them back to the medical examiner's office, so then we could examine them. There's many things that we do, but I think identification is one of the main ones, and trauma analysis would be second, with recovery probably third.
As part of your consultation, are you also assisting in interpreting decomposition?
Yes.
And does that include kind of looking at what's maybe normal or not normal in certain environments or situations in which remains are recovered?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, have you testified in court before regarding your consultations with medical examiner offices as a forensic anthropologist?
I have.
Okay. And is this your second time testifying in court?
It is.
Okay. Now, when are you called, or under what circumstances are you called in by a medical examiner's office to assist?
Well, any of the reason, it depends on how extensive their need is. So I could be called to say someone was walking their dog and they found remains in the park or something like that, and then they would say, can you come help us make sure that those remains are recovered properly, and then so you would do the recovery there and sort of control that scene from the point of the skeleton. Then you would have the skeleton would be transported to the medical examiner's office. Then if they wanted to say, what do we know about this person? What can you tell me about this person? Who are they? Who could they have been? You would do the full analysis, what's called a biological profile, which is, there's 4 main components: age, biological sex, stature, how tall were they, and then also, what am I thinking? So age, biological sex, stature, any kind of, I'm blanking, but there's essentially a lot of things that we can show to say, oh, I'm sorry, what did the person look like in terms of, we say population affinity, but essentially their ancestry, we would know that better as. So those are the 4 main ones. And then also if there's any pathology, so did they have any sort of disease pathway that would be unique to them? Did they have any distinguishing marks on their bones that maybe they fell out of a tree when they were 8 and there's a scar, something like that. So you would be able to build up who this person might have been, what their life was like. And then if they had trauma, you would assess that and say, this happened to this person, it was well before death, so it didn't have anything to do with how they died, or maybe it's right at the time of death, so it could have been. Those kinds of things. Is the decomposition consistent? So if someone has something that's called adipocere, which is sort of a waxy substance, we get that when things are humid. So someone found out in a desert, that would be inconsistent. And so you would have to explain that. So the body maybe was moved, or it was maybe kept somewhere, or there was something that was just sort of unique about that burial that caused that. But it's a discussion that you would have about it. So you just...
Dr. Truesdell, I'm not sure what the original question was. Why don't we move on to the next question? Or if you have follow-up to that answer, I just didn't want it to go too narrative there.
No, that's fine. That was exactly what I was asking, what all those different circumstances are in which, and it was helpful for you to give examples.
Yes, and so in Emmy's office.
Hang on, just wait for the next question.
Now, are you also called in situations where maybe it's a cold case or a homicide, or maybe it's a suspicious or a questionable death?
All of these things?
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
So is it fair to say that anytime we're looking at a skeleton, that would be a time where you would be called in to assist?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in hearing everything about what your role is there a particular task which is at 116?
I do.
And what is that?
My final report given to the medical examiner's office.
And is it for the medical examiner's office case number WK24-2635?
It is.
And this report that you prepared, have you made any changes or corrections to it since you provided it to the medical examiner's office?
No.
And you signed each page of your report, is that correct?
Correct.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 116 into evidence.
Mr. Lychwick, any objection to the admission of Exhibit 116?
Yes, I have. I haven't been able to, I object to all these proceedings. I have not been able to counter these
All right, Mr. Lychwick.
expert witnesses with my own.
Stop. I'm asking the jury to disregard the statements of Mr. Lychwick. It's not a proper objection for a legal basis, and it is an attempt to pass information to the jury. So your objection, though, is noted and it is overruled. The exhibit will come into evidence.
Now, Dr. Truesdell, when you are first sitting down to write your report, do you include information about how you first came to be involved in this particular case with the Waukesha ME's office?
Yes.
And does this case involve human remains that were recovered on October 30th of 2024?
Yes.
And when was the first time then you went to the medical examiner's office here in Waukesha County after being contacted and your assistance was requested?
Okay, hang on one moment. Dr. Truesdell, I recognize that you have a notebook or something up there. I'm going to ask you to not refer to that. You can refer to your report, which has been admitted into evidence, or if there's other information that you would like to see from the prosecution to refresh your recollection, but I ask that you not refer to anything that's not already in the court record then. So, Attorney Thompson, if you want to ask a different question or re-ask the question, or if you have an answer to that question. Okay, go ahead and answer the question.
It was, actually, can you just go scroll up a few? It's down, I'm sorry, the other way. So it was 11/1/2024.
Okay, and the day prior, were you contacted by the medical examiner's office and your assistance was requested?
I was, yes, I was called prior to that, and we decided on that later date.
Okay. Now, once you arrive at the medical examiner's office on November 1st of 2024, was there already an examination in process as to the remains that were recovered on October 30th of 2024?
There was.
And when this initial process has started, are you getting in there right next to Dr. Scheel, or are you standing back for the time being?
I am obviously allowing her the space she needs to do her work, but I am watching very close by.
Okay, so at this point, you are more of an observer than an actual participant in the examination. Is that fair to say?
A close observer, as in if she points to something, I will come and look at it, or, you know, we're collaborating in that, but she's the one that is doing the examination closely with her hands, and I'm more, unless she points something out to me, but I am there next to her.
Okay. And were you aware whether x-rays were performed of the remains in this case?
They were?
And did you then subsequently review those as part of your trauma analysis and identification in this case?
I did.
Were you present once Dr. Scheel is finished with her autopsy, and then one of the steps to get a closer examination of the bones is to clean them? Is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall the standard cleaning protocol that you used in this case?
So during that examination, Dr. Scheel would remove the bones, hand them to me. I would put them on to another table, so they would then become something, my analysis as opposed to hers at that point. And then I would take those elements, those bones, from that table and use the protocol of, it's just called Stedman et al. We'd have to scroll to see the actual date. I think it's 2000. Well, I won't say. Keep going here. Stedman et al. 2006. I was right. So
I'm sorry, just to interrupt you. That's Steadman for the court reporter.
And essentially that was what's the best way. These are ways to clean the bones. The sort of the standard way that a lot of people use is water. So you put the bones in water and you heat that water up to a certain temperature. And sometimes you can add what's called enzymatic processes, but essentially it's a detergent of some kind. But yes, it's essentially water with some additives based on the best way that everyone sort of does is the Stedman protocol.
And when you're using this cleaning procedure, that's not affecting anything in terms of maintaining integrity of anything that could be on the bones for evidentiary value? No.
Obviously, any kind of soil or the tissue will come off during that process, but if we want that retained, we can. It can then be sieved. So you, depending on if you are interested in what's in the water or what comes off, that is not lost. It can be retained if you'd like.
Okay. Now, in this case here, once that cleaning process was completed, did you then conduct an inventory of all of the bones that were recovered?
Yes.
And is that located here under skeletal inventory on page 4 of your report?
It is.
And when we're talking about a skeletal inventory, are you saying you pick up every single bone, no matter how tiny it is, to examine it?
Yes.
Do you then lay out the skeleton and, in a sense, piece it back together in order to figure out if you're missing any?
Yes.
In this case here, regarding the remains that were recovered October 30th of 2024, out of the 206 bones in the human body, how many were recovered?
189.
And were you able to tell, as a forensic anthropologist, which bones were missing?
Yes.
Which bones were missing?
So the ones that we did not have recovered at the ME's office was the xiphoid process, which is XIPHOID. That's just at the bottom of your, it's called the sternum, but essentially if you think that this is a bone that just goes right down your chest, it's just right at the bottom. But that's because it gets lost quite often. Sometimes it doesn't fuse. It's not uncommon for that to happen, so it just gets lost. The lunate, would you like me to spell these as we go?
Or if it's easier, if you just wanted to describe the general areas of the body
Sure.
in which the bones were not located.
So on the bones of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 bones of the right wrist were not there, were absent. 3 bones of the left wrist were absent. One of the the longer bones, metacarpal it's called, just on the biggest part of your hand was missing on the left side. And then finger bones, little finger bones that you can't really say which side they are. They were, some of those were absent as well.
And in your training and your experience, if skeletal remains were found in an outdoor environment, when we consider if bones of this nature are missing, the smaller bones, is that unusual to you?
Not of the hands or the feet. In this case, there wasn't feet bones missing, but the smaller bones that are easily accessible to scavengers, they often go missing, or they are not recovered with the rest of the remains.
Okay. Now, when we then move on to the dental inventory, is that something that you completed in this case as well?
Yes.
And same thing with the bones. Are you piecing together the teeth, or how does that work?
The teeth are generally in the bone itself. The bone is then fractured, so the lower jaw, the mandible, was intact. The upper, what are called the maxilla, part of that was missing, but there was a fragment, so we could put it back. And then 2 teeth were just loose.
Okay. In total then, how many complete teeth were recovered and how many incomplete teeth were recovered?
26 were complete, 3 incomplete.
Okay. Now, after all of these x-rays were taken and you reviewed them, did you find anything that was of particular importance to you during this analysis?
No, the findings were what we would call unremarkable.
Okay. Now, if we go to the next section of your report, you talk about how over 5 days, each bone was examined and processed. So can you tell me, in a general overview, what you were doing over those 5 days?
So once the remains had been x-rayed and they were now laid out, we would say, so put into how they would be in life, you go through and we are cleaning them and then laying them out as they dry. So what we're doing in that 5 days is the cleaning process first. So putting them in the water bath, but then they need time to let that water bath work. So that is multiple hours. So you're just waiting. And then when you take those out, they need to dry, and they need to dry completely. So that's usually overnight, or it takes, sometimes a day or 2, depending on how thick the bone is. So you are essentially doing multiple rounds of different bones and then drying those bones. So they're in the water for a while, they're drying for a while. So it can take quite a bit of time to get the entire skeleton cleaned and dry so that you can move on to other things.
Now, after you had finished all of this processing and you examined each of the bones, were there certain anthropological findings you were able to make based upon your examination of these bones?
Yes.
Okay. if we look at your report at the bottom of page 5, the first thing that you identify is the population affinity of the individual. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what was your conclusion?
Based on the bones that were examined, the individual was likely to be a Hispanic male with Caucasian traits.
And when you were talking earlier about different circumstances in which you would be called in to assist, one of those categories, if you will, was that the what did the person look like?
Yes.
And so when we're talking about this population affinity, it's what did the person look like?
What does the person look like? How did people know them? How would they have described them?
Are there ways that you can, or are there characteristics of these bones that lead you to the conclusion that this is a Hispanic individual with Caucasian traits?
Yes.
And are those kind of broken down into two categories of metric versus non-metric?
They are.
What are the differences between those two?
Metric can be measured. Non-metric is things that can't be measured.
Okay, so what would be an example of a metric characteristic?
Height, the distance from one, we call them landmarks, but just a point to another point, that is something that you can measure.
Okay, and what about non-metric?
A non-metric trait could be how wide it's called a nasal aperture, but essentially the place where the nose would be, how wide is that? And that varies between people. So that would be something, well, you could measure that, but you could take a measurement of the width, but not it as a whole. It's more of a, let's say the slope of the eye sockets would be another thing that would be non-metric.
Now that you've made that determination, were you also able to determine the sex of the human remains?
Yes.
And what was your opinion as to that?
This individual was likely to be male.
Okay, and what observations did you make about these bones that led you to that conclusion?
There are two places that are the best places to determine this. One is the skull, one is the pelvis. The pelvis is the first place you would want to look. Essentially, the difference in the pelvis is in females, everything is wider, everything is a bit more flared out because we have to allow for babies, whereas males don't, and so their pelvis is going to be taller and more narrow because they don't have to have the space. So there's a long list of techniques that are used, but essentially it's how wide is something versus how narrow it is. You see that in several places. The skull is how pronounced something is. So if something has more of it's called gracile, which just comes from the word graceful. So how small is it? How graceful is it? That tends to be more of a female, more on the female side. If it's the bone is we call robust, very thick and sort of heavy, then that would tend to be more on the male side because males have bigger muscle attachments. They have bigger muscles because they are just overall bigger.
The next section of your report, you opine as to the age of the individual. How did you come to, or first, what was your conclusion?
Of the age of the individual?
Yes.
50 to 80 years.
And how or what characteristics did you see that led you to that conclusion?
So, how we age is we can start with three broad categories. So in infants, our bones sort of knit together. So we're born with more than that 206 we talked about, and then they sort of knit together as we get older. So where those are in that progression can tell you age in a younger individual, as well as size. And then once those are all done, we would say fusing. Once everything's complete, there's sort of a middle area where everything's complete, but there's not a lot of wear and tear. We're sort of in as just sort of a middle area, a stasis, we might say. And then once we start to see things like degenerative change, arthritis, more of that wear and tear, Those things show up in individual bones. We might think this is a person that is in this older category, also loss of density, so osteoporosis or things like that. We might think this is an older person. So once we have our broad category, we can apply multiple techniques within those categories to narrow down and make that age a bit more specific.
So if you are looking at bones or at a skeleton and you're seeing that everything that is supposed to eventually be fused is fused, are we looking at an individual that is likely older than 45 years old?
Yes.
Okay. Then in this case, if you are estimating that the individual is between 50 and 80 years, did you observe that fusion in each of the appropriate spots on the skeleton?
Fusion has ended by this point. Even the latest ones are done, so we know we're above 45/50. But this individual didn't have a lot of. This individual had some arthritis in some of his elbows and fingers joints, but not a huge amount that would make me think, oh, this is a very elderly person. So from that, you can sort of say this is maybe someone in later middle age or sort of a young maturity, but not someone who's elderly, not someone who's young, not someone who's elderly. Within that, you look at just various parts of the skeleton that change over time, and we know that they predictably change. So where they are in that change, we can say, okay, you're maybe in this decade of life or these 2 decades of life, but we can't ever say you're exactly this. We can just give a range.
Okay. Then as we continue through your report, the next conclusion that you make is related to the stature of the individual. Is that the height of the person?
Yes.
And what are the best indicators in a human skeleton to determine someone's stature?
Long bones, specifically the long bones of the leg. So a femur, so your thigh bone, but then also a tibia, so your lower leg bone, and then essentially the lower leg bones.
Okay. Now, do we come to the point then where you give an opinion as to the trauma analysis component of this examination that you were called in to assist with?
Yes.
Okay. And as you prepared the report, were there also photos that you used either from the medical examiner's office or photos that you asked that they take on your behalf because you wanted a specific angle?
Yes. The medical examiner, when I'm doing an examination and I want something highlighted or documented, I will have one of the deputy medical examiners or the autopsy techs there with me, and I will say, take a photo of this, take a photo of this.
What is the difference between antemortem and perimortem?
Antemortem is before death. Perimortem is at or around the time of death.
And as you reviewed this skeleton, did you observe perimortem trauma?
Yes.
And was that particularly in the area of the skull and one of the vertebrae?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to just scroll down to the appendix here. And this has previously been received, Exhibit 116, but I would ask to publish this particular page with Dr. Truesdell to the jury, please.
Which page is that of 116?
15?
Mr. Lychwick, any objection to page 15 being used with the jury?
No, not at this time.
Then it may be used.
Now, Dr. Truesdell, earlier in this case, the jury saw a photo of this skull, but the top teeth were not present. And you talked earlier in your testimony about a fragment that you had reattached. Is this picture in Appendix 3 on page 15 of your report showing the fragment that you reattached.
Yes.
And can you point out for me, and maybe if is there a line where you can see where it would have been reattached?
Yes.
Is that here along the line of where my cursor is?
Correct.
And what's the purpose of reattaching in terms of your examination of the trauma?
It just makes things clearer.
Okay. Then when we look at this nasal cavity area, what, if anything, did you see that you specifically noted in your report regarding the trauma?
So posterior, at the back of that cavity, as you say, there's a roughly circular, what we would say defect, just means something that's not normally there. So there's a roughly circular defect, and in the report, it's about 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter.
And if we go to Appendix 4, which is the following page,
Are you asking that this page get published also?
I would ask that I be able to publish any of the pages in Exhibit 116 going forward, please.
Sure. Mr. Lychwick, any objection to the complete publication of Exhibit 116 at this time?
Yes, I should object, because as before I object to these proceedings, I do not approve of these materials being introduced against me because I have no way to defend myself against
All right,
these charges.
Mr. Lychwick, I note your objection. I'm overruling that objection. Exhibit 116 can be used with the jury.
Okay. Now, moving on to page 16, which is Appendix 4, in the photo with the letter A on the top left-hand corner, I see a purple circle here. What are you seeing in that circle?
The defect I mentioned.
Okay. And when you talk about these defects, both in the skull and then also in the vertebra, are you able to say that that is the result of a gunshot wound, or do you intentionally use the word projectile or defect?
We would tend to use the more removed terms of defect, sometimes insult, but projectile, because we don't know, at least me looking at these bones, I can't say one way or another that there was a bullet there or not. So I would not want to say bullet and not have my exact knowledge of that. So I would say projectile, because that's more encompassing.
And does that go back to the concept that you are simply making observations of traumas or injuries to the bones and then giving that to the medical examiner, and they take that information and apply it to their case as they see fit?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if we go to page 17, slowing down just a little bit. Now, in the 3 photos that are on page 17, did you observe beveling and radiating fractures from the defect in the skull in this picture?
One of the defects, yes, and yes.
Okay. Then that's something you would also indicate in your report as well. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, if we go to page 19 of your report, we can see that there are several different colored lines at various areas of the skull. Do you see that?
Yes.
What are those indicating?
Those would be additional fractures or radiating fractures that come from the initial insult. So when a projectile is coming towards an object, it's got a lot of energy. That energy, once it hits the object, has to be dispersed. And so those lines, those radiating fractures, are just the energy looking for places to go.
Okay. And then lastly then, on page 20 of your report, we also are now looking at the vertebra that had the trauma. I think it was the L2, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, and now we saw this photo earlier, or at least a very consistent photo of the L2 vertebra with this probe through it. But I can see you kind of have some yellow dots here on the two lower pictures in B and C. What is that representing?
The rounded nature of the defect in the not right up front. So showing that while we can see on that top photo B that the defect that's closest to us has a rounded nature, the yellow is highlighting that the one behind it also has a rounded nature.
At the conclusion of your report then, did you provide this to the medical examiner's office, specifically Dr. Scheel, in the event that it assisted her with the identification process of the individual whose skeleton we recovered April 30th of 2024?
I did.
Okay. I do not have any other questions for this witness.
Cross-examination, Mr. Lychwick?
On the grounds that I have no.
Mr. Lychwick, do you have questions for this witness?
No.
Okay, doctor, you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Attorney Thompson, who is the state's next witness?
Detective Ben Stern, but before then, could we take a brief break? I do have a lot of exhibits to use with him, and I'd like to put them all up front so that I remain at council table.
Sure, I think that would be a good idea anyway. Sometimes this first period right after lunch requires an earlier break than normal. So let's take a 10-minute break, and we will resume a little after 2 p.m. I remind you again, do not discuss the case. Thank you. You may be seated. We are outside the presence of the jury. Attorney Thompson, during the break, feel free to make use of the witness stand there to lay out your exhibits as you see fit. Anything else before we go to break from the state?
I would like to double check with the court. As I was reviewing the exhibits specifically related to the trail camera videos from Mr. Lefebvre's testimony, those were exhibits number 66 through 74. And I just wanted to be sure, because I think there was a little confusion amongst us if all of them were admitted as they should have been.
I have 66 through 72, and all of those were admitted.
Okay, thank you. That helps with my analysis. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Mr. Lychwick, anything before we break?
Yes, definitely. I am not receiving a fair trial here. I'm being railroaded. I am innocent of these charges, and I am not in physically good health to be here today. I have been forced to. My attendance is forced. I am here under duress. And this trial should never have occurred. This case should have been dismissed 8 months ago on the grounds of tainted evidence.
Your objection is noted. We will be on break.